Like shoes, I don't own very nice shoes, smart shoes.
Can you borrow from
Yeah,
people?
I don't know. I just don't want to spend loads of money. I'll see and see.
There's like a few cracks in the bottom of that one.
No, it's really sad. It's because this clay is porcelain, and it's just, it dries really precariously.
There's always one though.
And hello.
We're going for lunch.
Okay. Yeah, it just dries really. It's really hard to dry, and it's because it dries at different rates. So I'm having these issues, but I hope when I fire them, they'll become less visible. The series of pots started as it is an illustration of what the themes and the ideas that I'm talking about in my extended critical journal, and I kind of at first wanted it to be sort of a journey about cultural identity, or an investigation into cultural identity, and also the idea of the self and how we perceive ourselves, and different ways to talk about our view of the self. And a lot of my research came from like Carl Jung and other sort of Buddhist influences, because Carl Jung's was like quite different from people of his time, because even though he was such a Western psychologist, he took lots of influences from Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion, and he was sort of the first person in like Western modern history to sort of really incorporate that into his work. And I think that's why his work is so strong, because it's very inclusive of Eastern cultures and different cultures. And so I think I started the series wanting it to be a reflection of the ideas and the themes that I talked about. And in my ECJ, I kind of wanted to solve some of the problems that I felt around sort of the indoctrination of cultural identity, and sort of very much the man-made constructs that we hold. But in the end, the pots sort of, we talked about how it would be more interesting if there would be more questions around cultural identity rather than like questions being resolved into sort of solutions. So they all sort of have these quite provocative statements on them, rather than it being a more conventional narrative of like problem and then solution. So this one is about Lots of things really, yeah, all sort of about quite a few different things, but this one I wanted it to be about, I wanted the shape to kind of take the shape that the clay would naturally sort of bow to when it's wet. So, and I knew I wanted to have it, because all of my work is very socio-political, so I wanted it to be like a very recognisable shape in the bottom, so that's why the bottom's a square, and to have this sort of like structured and formed and crafted shape at the bottom, and then as it goes up, I wanted the clay to sort of have more of a life and to just bend and curve in the ways that it wanted to go when it was wet. So I started building on top of it and let it take its natural shape from the way that it was naturally inclined to go. And I think sort of this process is kind of what's become really important in my ceramics work, and it's and so I made the phrase on this one an attempt to assimilate, because sort of I thought was appropriate from this uncomfortable form that took shape, and and sort of it's talking about really like the cultural hegemony of the culture that we have and the culture that I grew up in, which was extremely white really, and that's how the form sort of reflects that through the square, and then like the sort of rigidity and the formality of the square, but then moving into this fluid and natural form. So it was quite nice to work. So when I started building it up, it was nice to work in a way that like I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, and how there'd be like some nice, it was a nice happy surprise, and didn't know what it was going to look like, but it started to sort of bend in these ways, and then these chimneys sort of came out of it. So that was kind of the thinking for this one. Yeah, which is sort of a much more fluid shape than the other ones, which are all a bit more formal, I think. It takes its own life. It sort of, it develops its own life as you start building. So there's always going to be an element of unpredictability, which is why I originally was really interested in the process. Because I think I was interested in more subversive processes in the course of com des and illustration, and so much of the time I think when you have an idea of what you want to make and then you make it, it removes a lot of sort of happy accidents. Was a really nice way to sort of remove that problem. And I think it kind of limits your creative process when you're like have such a clear idea of what you want to do, and then you do it, and then I think it's more limiting than doing something that you don't really know what you're doing a lot of the time, which is I guess what I'm doing.